It is that time of the week. It's Hump Day. Happy Wellness Wednesday. This is the Marketplace Show Reset. This is segment number 1 on health, wellness, and lifestyle. I'm Anthony Weeks, joined by my colleagues, the two beautiful ladies in the Washington, D.C., Maryland, Virginia area, the dynamic duo of Linda Dorman, host of the segment and co-host. We have Yvette Wood. We have a special show as usual for you this afternoon. We have a special guest lined up, waiting in the studio. And I hope wherever you are, folks, you're having a wonderful time. We are celebrating our 15th year in terms of the launching of Callaloo, an Alliance Media Network. We are an Alliance Media Network because we are aligned with television, radio, and other streaming platform. We are a Bloomberg radio affiliate, WSDX. We're broadcasting live on WSDX and WSDX Bloomberg Radio, broadcasting on Temple Network, broadcasting on La Mega Mundial, broadcasting on Caribbean American Passport, and of course, broadcasting on our brand new platform called the Our Network TV. And you're able to go there by simply go to ourtv.network. This was important because for 15 years, we've pioneered live streaming on several major events, concerts, carnival, festivals. We've even done political town halls. We've done it all. And so we hallmarked 15 years of streaming. We were one of the few to be able to start bring streaming. Certainly WSDX and my broadcasting on WSDX. I'm the first, if you will, I think I'm still the only business broadcasting program in the United States Virgin Islands, broadcasting on one of the oldest radio stations. And so we have a lot to celebrate in terms of who we are and how we're growing exponentially. And so now when you go to this platform, it's called the Consolidated Merge Combined platform, where all of our channels and network are now literally at one fingertip, at one stop. And so that is ourtv.network, powered by Callaloo. And of course, this segment we've had for over a year, going on 2 years, with my colleagues, both Linda Dorman as well as Carolyn. Carolyn is still part of the network, but she's now focused on the entertainment aspect of it. She does head up her own company, just like Linda has her own company, and as well as Yvette Woods. We're all independent strategic alliance partners, bringing you the best content from an education information standpoint, and we're continuing to looking forward to the future. Ladies, how are you doing today?
Doing great, Anthony. It's raining on my end of the DMV. Not sure what's going on Linda's side, but it's pouring down raining over here. We got flash floods watch. Linda, what's happening on your end?
Well, we're holding up. We do not have rain yet, but it's on its way. The DMV is looking kind of Ida-ish at the moment. So we hope that we don't get any remnants of Ida or any other person, but
okay, we're getting some feedback. We're getting some feedback. Yeah. You can cure that by, I think, either taking off your speaker or lowering the volume, if you will.
Okay. Will do.
Yeah, so go ahead, Linda. Sorry about that.
Okay, well, this is live television, live radio, and every once in a while we have a little bit of a technical, because you want to hear me in Technicolor, that's what it is. So, yeah, so, for those who actually tune in, and I just apologize to you, like, I can't really see her that well because my office is being renovated. So that's where I usually have an opportunity to sit with you all and talk about very important health, wellness, and lifestyle issues. Yeah, absolutely.
But we can see you. I mean, it's not perfect, but we can see you. And you look great as well. Love that. What is that a Versace? Is that a Versace top or something going out there?
It does kind of look that way, doesn't it?
It does.
No. I have 2 children, 2 teenagers, so we have no Versace anything in this household. Only in my imagination. Thank you very much. Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
Now, I know we have a guest, right? And I want to kind of, from a lifestyle, it is about health, obviously, it is about the vaccine, but it's also a lifestyle issue because
Yes.
When you choose to partner with marry someone, date someone, whatever you want to call it, you find someone who either you are an extremely compatible person with, and some people say opposites do attract. I don't subscribe to that one. I don't subscribe to the latter, opposite attract, because at some point you're going to be butting heads. You're going to be knocking heads. Men are from Mars, women from Venus, and so you got to find common ground, compatibility as much as you can. And so, during the Trump era, a lot of households were divided because either you were for the president, for Donald Trump, or you were against Donald Trump. And it was now we finding ourselves with the same dilemma, same challenges where, households are divided. Households are divided, and there's a topic article that is called "My Partner Won't Get Vaccinated. What Can I Do?" And so here are some bullet points from the article. It says, if you are in a relationship with a partner who is hesitant about getting COVID-19 vaccine, experts say the way you talk with them about it can make a big difference. Bullet point number 3, they also say it's best to avoid arguing or shaming them. Third bullet point says, instead, experts suggest listening to their concerns, sharing data and medical advice from trusted sources, and assuring them of your love and concern for them. And so there's an entire article. We're gonna feature that article on the website so people can have the benefit of it. We've created a new segment, our news blog segment, where we provide the healthcare questions Q&A for the week. And so we'll post that up. We didn't do that for the show, but you'll be able to do that. And finally, if you can just for one more thing, I saw something on social media that says it looked a little bit Photoshop, but they try to make it seem like it's Pfizer that says it. I doubt it. But it says there was a photograph of the blue pill, okay, that Pfizer produced called Viagra. And they said, okay, if Pfizer can make a vaccine that helps you with your dysfunction, okay, and enhance your situation, if you can take the blue pill and you have no idea what's in it, but you know it's working, they're saying then you can trust Pfizer with the COVID-19 vaccine. I'm going to leave that right there. I dropped that grenade and I'm walking out the room.
Bam. Well,
lifestyle.
Can I add a fourth one to the list, the article? So the fourth one, before I get to the blue pill comment, the fourth one I think is explaining why you made the decision, what makes you feel so confident about it, because hopefully they'll follow the leader. They'll love you enough. So I would just encourage those who are in those kind of relationships. And I actually know a couple that's in that relationship. She's gotten vaccinated. He does not even trust to wear a mask. So we're not even at the vaccine conversation. It's really something. So I told her, well, just every once in a while, you might want to just slip a little bit of the news stories around those who wish they had when they're on ventilators or about to be incubated, that it's really real out here, and hopefully not to do the scare tactic.
I'm going to venture to say one who prides themselves in being a contrarian is always going to find a way to say, no, I don't agree. Okay. I don't think what you say, anything you say to them, they're contrarians. And so they're going to go in the opposite direction. They're going to find every, conceivable, illogical explanation as to why, or to kind of justify their position. And so I don't think you're going to be able to convert anyone who's a true contrarian. Others who are straddling the fence, maybe, but no, there's some people who are just going to go literally to the grave, not believing in this.
And I guess it's the same thing with those who see cancer and have cancer in their families, but yet still have a lifestyle that is very susceptible to contracting cancer or to developing cancer. You don't contract it, but to develop cancer. So those who smoke cigarettes, as an example, there's a risk there. Alcohol use excessive, there's a risk there. So you're right. Those who are contrarians, I love that word. I'm going to use it. I can tell you, it's a new one for me. What can we say? We just pray and hope that enough people start to come over to the reality check now that Pfizer is approved and the other vaccines are on their way, hopefully, to being approved shortly in the near future.
Absolutely. And the other thing you can add with that Viagra statement, Anthony, is that Viagra does not work on corpses, nor does it work if you're on a ventilator. So if you're going to use Viagra, you probably want to use it after you've taken your vaccine.
Woo!
That's
wow.
You guys are
okay, that was another bomb that just...
You guys are out of control today. Oh, my God.
That's a lifestyle conversation for you.
There you go.
You made a really good point. Wow. Well, there's a lot of things we can't do if we're dead, and we don't want anyone to succumb to this if they don't have.
The guest waiting in the studio, so if you don't mind, I'd like to bring him in because at least he'll balance it out. It's 2 against 1 right now, so at least if I bring in another male, there'll be some balance here. So let's bring in our special guests, ladies.
Hey. Hey there. Hey, Anthony. That's kind of loaded, man. You brought me on a loaded episode here.
That's okay. You probably can handle it. So so welcome to the program. Glad to have you.
Well, on a serious note, though, Joseph Walters, Joseph Walters, the ladies are going to do the honor of introducing him more properly. But, there is some truth to it, whether or not it's really coming from Pfizer or not. If there are a lot of things we are consuming and we have no idea, zippo, what the ingredients are, what's in them, okay? And men are taking, these enhanced drugs to help them perform better sexually. They have no idea what's in these drugs. All they know it works, right? It's producing results. And so for someone to say, oh, I can take the blue pill, even though I don't know what is in it, as long as I am okay with, getting the satisfaction and my partner getting the satisfaction, I'll continue to consume this blue pill and it doesn't matter what's in it because at the end of the day, it's giving me results.
Sure. So, if you want me to comment on that point, it makes me think of a broader issue, particularly when it comes to vaccines and maybe the African-American population or the disenfranchised. I think there's 2 factors. One, it's been politicized, and it's gotten this stigma that there's some far left or right conspiracy going on. It's all over the internet. Social media is actually expanding on that. You've got all these theorists on, they're going to try to control you. It's a chip. It's this end time kind of prophecy. So that's one issue. The other issue, which is an ongoing issue for African Americans, is disparities in healthcare. And that falls into, because we don't get our, African American males don't even get their prostates checked, and they retire from their jobs, and all of a sudden they get cancer. That's gone into their bones. We don't know our numbers. We have always been targets, particularly in the medical device area, as well as in research, where we're excluded from research and clinical studies. Women, African-American women and men are probably not in the clinical trials included. And then, when you're talking about medical devices and those kind of things, we're always on the opposite, on polar ends from our counterparts. If you're talking about amputation because of diabetes and peripheral artery disease, there's a disproportionate number of us that have been getting amputations unnecessarily. There's a bill that's just been passed last year that diabetic patients should at least get screened. They should get some kind of, it's like they're amputating our people's organs, African or minorities' organs, because of diabetes. And it's tantamount to a woman that's got breast cancer, but they don't do a mammogram. They just chop her breasts off.
Wow.
Yeah, so this is this is going on, and it's been ongoing. And just kind of digressing back, when I started in the medical device industry, it must have been divine intervention, because I wasn't the gifted and talented student that should have been there. But for some reason, God put me there. And I was going in surgery with board certified surgeons and taking them into animal labs, not a doctor, not a surgeon, with the two premier companies that were doing surgery. And I got to see a whole lot. And it was a lot to do with disparities in healthcare, us getting amputated, unnecessary procedures. I mean, it was sad. African American women are being decimated with hysterectomies because of fibroid tumors. I was a VP of a company, Celanova. I even went to Congress, and it was such an issue. It was it was almost like it's almost like genocide. Cleveland, Mississippi, hysterectomy capital of the world for African American women.
Wow.
And I was in Portugal at a big event, and I remember speaking with Tony Van Brooks. He's the professor, radiologist over at GW. And I said, Dr. Van Brooks, is this data for real? And he said, unfortunately, it is. And they were doing hysterectomies in African-American women that were showing symptomatic with bleeding and cramping, but they were in their childbearing years. Mm-hmm. And they would go right to hysterectomy, not knowing that they could see a radiologist and they could inject beads through the uterine artery and block the blood supply to the tumor and have it infarct. And in 48 hours, those symptoms are gone. Mm-hmm. And these are some of the issues that as African-Americans we're dealing with. At some point when I was actually going in, I went from the operating room to the cath lab, and I dealt with radiologists, cardiologists, vascular surgeons. I've seen bypass surgeries, and I've seen the cardiologists fight over with the vascular surgeon where they're going to do an intervention versus doing a bypass. Well, let's do both, and then all of a sudden a piece of plaque gets dislodged and now the patient's on a pump. So these are things that are going on. So if we go back to where we are right now with COVID, our history really presents that we have been kind of, the guilt is justified, but we have to understand, separate fact from fiction, and make sure that we're doing things that not out of fear, but, being educated enough to understand what's in our best benefit. And it's not helping with all the conspiracy stuff, as well as being politicized. And of course, we are our population, because of geography, because of economics, we are more prone to this disease. We got too many people in the house. We have those menial jobs where, we're in transit and we're constantly in the public. So, we're more prone to, these COVID type things. Mm-hmm.
So what do you think will be one of the steps that we as an African-American or a community of color can actually take to mount some of these issues and surmount them, to eradicate them, to begin to address them more holistically so that we don't have to be that statistic? Because when you said something about African-American men in the US retiring and then having prostate cancer,
right,
and then you may have less than 10 years to live. So you've now contributed 30, 40 years into Social Security.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And then you only reap maybe 5, 6, 10 years if you're fortunate, because this has been your situation. You just described my father.
Yeah.
So that touched home exactly what happened, and he passed at 69. So I understand that. And my question is, I don't think our family was prepared to be smart enough on how to take family steps to address cancer,
right,
and to look at our lifestyle and make sure that we continue to incorporate health practices. I did not grow up that way. So that's why health and wellness is such a significant platform for me now.
Absolutely.
So what do you think is what should we be doing at this point in time?
Well, prevention is really the key to the whole thing. And that prevention comes through education. What I started doing when I was out in the field, because I grew up in Newark, New Jersey, and I grew up around everything that would be social determinants or disparities. And so by being privileged to get these opportunities and to get in those spaces, and I would come back and I would see, that disparity. So what happened was it was almost like I was fighting against my company, because companies want to do surgery. That's it. The surgeons want to do surgery. They want to make money. So what is our job? Well, we go into the African-American churches. I've gone into churches and spoke on fibroid tumors, and there were about 10 women sitting in the stands. They started crying because because the option of meeting with a radiologist to have their fibroid tumors addressed with a radiologist minimally invasively wasn't even presented as an option. And and so it changed their lives because they were in their childbearing years. There was no telling, even though they were married or had 1 or 2 children, that they wouldn't meet Boaz or whoever this husband that would be coming, and they would have another. They were taking that away from them. With African American men, the education piece, we've got to know our numbers. You have to understand your cholesterol, your hypertension. We have to do things like learn how to eat to live. We have to educate, go into institutions, I do a whole big thing on smoothies. I got all my brothers are now doing smoothies. They all got Vitamixes. Everybody's getting kale and freezing it with bananas and pineapples and these are the things we have to do. When I talk to men that have, let's say, labor jobs, longshoremen, people that do physical labor, make good money. Why are you going to work for 30 years and then end up moving to your apartment in Florida and then find out you've got prostate cancer that's metastasized and spread all over your body? And like you said, now you've got all your new stuff and you're going to die. Well, that story needs to be told. Our people perish because of lack of knowledge. And it's up to people like us to go out amongst them and to be vigilant, working with physicians. I work with vascular surgeons. I'll go in and work with radiologists and go into the churches to speak. Now, it's not taking them to slaughter because you're taking them to the alternative versus just having surgery. So education, awareness, and not, as you were just saying earlier, it's not what you say, it's how you present it.
Yes.
It's not what you say, it's your delivery. You want to deliver things in a way that people can understand, not deliver it in a way that you get your message across, but you scared everybody, or everybody felt rejected, or felt guilt or something. So these are things that are very important. So we got a lot of work to do.
And what do you think would be one of the ways that we can help solidify that information? Because I think what you said is exactly what I was hoping you would say, and that our listeners and our viewers would really, we keep re-emphasizing prevention starts with education, knowledge is powerful. What else should we be doing in terms of checking in? Are you using that knowledge? Are you activating that power of change? Because I think we can get a lot of information out there, but there's a support network that needs to continuously evaluate the quality of that communication and based on use of that information. Are there any strategies? And I know, Yvette, you see this in your practice and your work. I put the same question to you as well. What else can we do beyond the education? Are we going back into the communities and bringing those individuals forward as volunteers? Are we doing surveys and checks? Are we giving them the aha moments, like, digestive care and health has something, your gut health has something to do with your brain health. The things that we wouldn't, that we don't understand of our anatomy that's so interesting, possibly, that you're going to remember it. And then how are you going to apply that? I've not seen any programs that go back and do that level of follow-up.
Well, I can just tell you one of the things that I do, and I'll let Yvette jump in. I call it reinventing of oneself. I was an athlete. That's a philosophy. When I motivational speak, I talk about how do you reinvent yourself, mind, body, and soul. And if you get down to the lowest common denominator, everything starts with good habits, right? So you need to be educated on understanding your body. Like if you're biblical, then you understand that if you believe in the not in evolution, not that one, but in creation, if you believe you came from the dirt, then you would understand that the dirt contains 102 minerals. And if your body is composed of those 102 minerals, if you came from the dirt, those are life-sustaining things that boost your immune system, right?
Wow.
So what are the foods that you should be eating that will boost your immune system, which COVID attacks, right?
Yes.
So that's where you start eating to live. If you go to the Caribbean or go into Europe, you find people using sea greens or seaweed or sea moss. Because it has 102 minerals in it. Because everything that washes into the sea washes into that, right?
It has how many minerals?
So there's 102 minerals, and particularly, there could be at least 92 of them, like in Irish moss or sea greens, right? You can buy that on the internet and boil it, and then put it in your smoothie. So now you've got the baseline of your minerals and your vitamins. The problem here in America is we overfarm the land, right? That's where the minerals, they run through the land like veins, magnesium and zinc and all that runs through the land. But because of the greed and capitalism, we overfarm the land, right? So therefore you get vegetables that may not have the nutrients you think you're getting.
Oh,
So
that's
you need to
so
supplement
you
a little
just
bit.
you just said a full mouth full, and since I'm not in my office, I usually I take notes. If I look down, it's because I'm writing. So
Right.
102 minerals
Yeah.
is in the dirt. That is then the soil
Right.
that produces our vegetables. But we have
Right.
over-farmed in the United States and perhaps
Yeah.
in other parts where people are
Right.
listening and viewing from,
Right.
that has stripped some of those minerals. So we then have to supplement with
Exactly.
a supplement.
Right.
Okay, I'm getting out my magnesium. I will report in that I've had my vitamin D today,
Right.
but I'm going further into that CMOS because I've heard that has been a real
Yeah.
support to boosting immune system.
Right.
Is that the key to general health? Are boosting our immune systems?
So what you're doing is you're starting at the cellular level, right?
Mhm.
And that's where you build your immune system from that level up. And those your body is composed of those minerals and vitamins. Typically African Americans, we're usually deficient vitamin D, and maybe that has to do with our melanin. But even if you ran your blood, you'll see maybe B or D. But the foundation of the minerals, which your body is composed of, by fortifying those things, you make yourself less susceptible to even things like COVID, which attacks people with pre-existing conditions, people that have low immune systems or compromised immune systems. That's who COVID attacks. So it's not the end all be all, so now we're eating right. What's the next thing? Well, we seem like when we left whatever we did in high school, whether we cheerleaded or we wanted to be cute for the boys or we wanted to be the star on the basketball team, we ran track, we go away from that when we get our jobs. Walking, we start eating, we forget about the balance. We got to go back to those things we did in our childhood. If you can swim, swim. If you can ride the bike, ride the bike. Don't worry about your hair. Don't worry about wasting time. Go out there and walk, ride the bike, swim, participate in activity, stretch, because your latter years can be your best years. You're only limited by the way you think. If you think, well, I'm getting close to retirement and I'm going to start shutting it down, guess what your brain's going to do? It's going to start shutting it down. So as you apply new habits and new discipline into your life and you make it fun, you'll find a restored, a renewed vigor and youth in the way you think. And these are the things that we are here to do. Our bodies, they're doing restorative and regenerative medicine right now, right? They're saying that there's stem cell type technology. One of the things that could help us with wellness. See, we have to understand the hunt is on and we're the prey. I think pharmaceuticals and medical device companies are great. Technology can be a blessing, but also a curse when capitalism and greed gets involved.
Right.
Okay. So what we find is that, for example, when it comes to things like medical devices, deciding what procedure should I get? Is it necessary or not? Well, if I'm a general surgeon or orthopedic surgeon, I can't trust that you've got to pay alimony or you got a big boat you need to take care of. So that procedure might be a little bit necessary, right? But I think when it comes to us, I think it's basically we were born to be able to live off the land by eating healthy. Now, exercising. So that's a part of that. I call it the Trinity: mind, body, and soul. A sound body makes a sound mind, right? So by feeding yourself at that cellular level, giving your body the nutrients, your brain's going to get sharper, your vision's going to get better, you're going to have more energy. By participating in stretching, yoga, whether it's swimming or doing water aerobics, depending on your current condition. Some people have to do non-weight bearing, so get in the water, do an elliptical machine, do an exercise cycle, but just get your 30 minutes in to stretch. You do that, and then you have to have a spiritual component. You meditate. And you've got to pray. You've got to, whatever your higher power is, I know what mine is, but you've got to get beyond yourself because your flesh has a tendency of having a mind of its own. If you can't separate yourself from that, you're going to be making decisions based on pride, emotions, and other things, which are our five sound senses. These are the things that we were born with. But you've got to be able to put those things under subjection. That's why people fast, people meditate. where they can elevate themselves beyond themselves, their own insecurities, their fears, their sense of pride. You know, you got to elevate yourself and go beyond yourself. And that's what really makes you great. And to do that, you have to be able to humble yourself.
Yes.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
and my principle there is to thine own self be true.
Yes. We
You
like
understand?
that.
To thine
I
own
have that
self be
tattooed
true.
on my shoulder.
Wow. So that's a
Yeah.
huge
Yeah.
commitment to thy
That's
own
always
self be
been,
true. It's
To thine
always
own
been
self
what,
be true.
Yvette?
I was just saying that's always been my motto, to thy own self be true. And Yvette's going to be more quieter during this broadcast than I normally am. But as you can see, our viewers and our listeners, that Mr. Walters is just a wealth of information. So I do encourage you to get your notepads and just take notes. I mean, he talked about so many things, but one thing that stood out to me was when you were talking about how important diet and exercise is. If you think back to when we were younger, Linda and Joe,
Mm-hmm.
we had to walk to school and
Right.
we ate whatever our parents put on the table, which generally were fresh vegetables. We weren't
Yes.
buying frozen, green beans and green giant and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't have childhood obesity to the degree that we do now. Our
Absolutely.
children nowadays want to sit at home. They want to play video games. They want to eat fast food. They don't exercise. They eat food that's saturated in fats, and they have a lot of health conditions, and so
Correct.
do the parents from that. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of truth to what you're saying about how we eat affects how we think, because you see a decrease in the average education. Grades are lower too, with the
Mm-hmm.
disparities of the lower socioeconomic. They're not doing as well in school.
Right.
And a lot of them are not even having breakfast before they come to school, which is why the schools are having food programs. But even those programs are lacking.
Mm-hmm.
So I just really, like I said, I'm going to be a little quiet this broadcast because I really want Joe to get in on that medical device disparities. And help people understand, because I feel like some people may not really understand what you mean, Joe, that
Okay.
you have a choice between an amputation or whether they don't, or when to ask questions and what
Right.
questions to ask.
Absolutely. Just to give you a little bit about my background, I'm not a doctor. I wasn't a pre-med student. Matter of fact, I played basketball. That got me out of the hood into a nice Jesuit school. Didn't have any fun there, but we played Division I, and it got me an opportunity to get drafted in the NBA. That wasn't really the thing. It was better to do that because my options were very limited back at home. And I really didn't know what I was gifted to do. All I knew is that I always cared about people. And growing up in that environment, I think I was going to be a social worker. And then I found out how much they got paid. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'll never get a car. So and I think I got fired from a job. And some kind of way it launched me into trying to understand, because my degree wasn't even related in business, marketing, any of that. And I was thinking more social work, criminal justice. And one of my best friends from high school, he ended up working for the Bisco brand, and he came back and he had a company car with a blue Blazer with the gold buttons. I'm like, what's that? You got a company car? So I realized that one of the things that I enjoyed was making money, and I loved competition. Sales is all about performance. And so I'll skip ahead to how I got into medical devices, because I started off selling Listerine mouthwash. That was my first job, and I moved to Philadelphia. And I noticed that there were different levels to this thing. One was the pharmaceuticals, ethical pharmaceuticals. There was consumer products. And then there was the medical device game back in the 80s, which was like the Green Beret. It was like the upper echelon. You made a lot of money. Well, I'm a competitor. I'm not really afraid to try anything. I've got faith and a discipline to do my best to reinvent myself, to do whatever I had to do. And that's where the reinvention came. I reinvented myself into this person that could have that job. And And I spoke it. See, that's the other thing about our bodies. And I learned this through medical technology. So I'm gonna. This is kind of weird, but when I was working for Medtronic, a company that's like a premier company, had more millionaires than Microsoft, and I moved into an executive position in these companies. Pacemakers, defibrillators, deep stimulators for the brain, for Parkinson's, chronic injectable pain, intractable pain for the spinal cord. There was neurostimulators going there. I'm like, wow, our bodies are also made up of all these cellular things. And I think we're also made up of current. There's there's current in our bodies. But getting into the medical device thing, I got a job with Ethicon, which is a company that's always maintained at least 90 to 95% of the suture market. So therefore, they supply sutures to every specialty: GYNs, urologists, vascular surgeons, ophthalmic sutures for the eyes, general surgeons, colon rectal surgeons. And so that was one division. And the other division, which was the tough one, I ended up getting a job there, and that was selling the surgical staplers. But to have that job, you had to go through a training. It's like 8 to 10 weeks with a board certified surgeon, Dr. Aaron Ruhalter, who was a general surgeon and the professor at Robert Wood Johnson. He taught our class. I think going to the pros was hard, but that class was way harder than anything I ever did. And I was told I could never get through it. Well, you can't tell me that. So I took that book, I slept on it, osmosis. I learned every anatomical term. I didn't want to date. I didn't want to talk. If you spoke great English and was smart, you can come in and help me understand these words: gastrojejunostomy, all these big words. So I got in training, and it was 8 weeks. It was incredible, the exposure. Because not only as a sales rep, people go, "You're not a surgeon. What are you talking about?" Well, thank God for us. They would make us go into animal labs, and we would have to learn every one of the procedures and perform them while the animal's under anesthesia and get checked off by the surgeon, just to have permission to go in with a board-certified surgeon. And the question is, why would they need you there? Well, it's all about technology. When a lot of these surgeons went through medical school, they learned open surgery, right? And how to do a cystectomy or gastrectomy or something like that. Well, by the time they got out, technology changed. And there was a paradigm shift where and thus was my exposure to all these different things. I would be in a hospital, and I might be watching a colon rectal procedure, and then I would get transferred. Then I would go from that room maybe down the suite, the operating room, and see a gynecological procedure. Then go upstairs. Maybe the next day.
You hear us? Okay, there we go.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know if you guys missed me. So anyway, so that's kind of my background. And from that position, I used to teach. I used to fly people into New York City because I covered NYU, Sloan Kettering, New York Hospital, Cornell. That's where I kind of get my introduction. And I ran a lot of their animal labs by training the residents and so forth. And then I began to get promoted. I became a trainer, then a sales training manager inside corporate. And then I went out as a district manager. And there were things that I noticed when I was in New York, when I was in Bedford-Stuyvesant. I remember training a chief of surgery at Interfaith A and B Hospital in Brooklyn. Dr. Requin, I took him to headquarters. I took him in an animal lab. I trained him. He only did one procedure, gastric bypass procedure. He suddenly called me and invited me in on a woman that was 100 pounds over her normal weight, morbidly obese. And I was sitting there, and I had just trained him. He wanted to use my sterile products, and I was handing them to him. And I watched that man kill that woman on the table. I watched that.
Because he did not have the proper skill set, and
he didn't have the skill set. See, the goal with medical device people is if you increase the core competency of the surgeon or the rep, you get better patient outcomes.
Yes,
and that means practice. These physicians, and the skill level of these physicians is not there. You've got A physicians, B, and then you've got some that shouldn't be doing surgery at all. We find a lot of them in some of these other hospitals. Here's the other thing that was really incredible. As I moved up and became a district manager, and then became the global training manager, director of training globally in Cincinnati, I found out that there were no Black surgeons that were being trained to go out and become preceptors or consultants. And in the Black hospitals, a lot of the Black surgeons didn't even have any of the new technology in their hospitals.
Wow. So then it sounds like one of the things that we need for patient competency is, Joe, that was just, I'm with Yvette. I'm just soaking it all in. So I'm bobbleheading.
I'm sorry, that's a lot of information. I might need to break it up.
No. This is we have a very smart viewer and listening audience that knows that. We had a great comment from Vernon a little while ago that said at 48 years old, he feels like a teenager, and really affirmed a lot of what you and Yvette just actually shared. And it sounds like as a patient, Oh, he said, do or die, Bed-Stuy.
Yeah.
It sounds like we as patients need to be that much more competent ourselves as well, particularly if you're heading into surgery. And you just said something that reminds me, because unfortunately, my father, who had prostate cancer, went in for that surgery, and he also passed. And I wondered what the level of experience was for that surgical team, the primary surgeon, and we never asked the question, how many times have you performed this procedure? Is that a question that we need to be asking as well?
Okay, that is a great question, and I should have jumped right into that. Okay, so here's what I do when I speak at churches or I go out and do any kind of speaking. We have to get over something called the white coat syndrome as African Americans. We're afraid to go up and ask the physician questions, right? Now that we have technology, you can Google the procedure or go on WebMD and know every step of what they're going to have, a basic foundation before you meet the physician and understand exactly what they're going to do, number one. Okay. Number two, you write your questions down, right? So some of the real questions you should be asking: how many procedures have you done? 2, 1, I'm looking for a second opinion. And if you're insulted, too bad on you. Go get your therapy. I'm sorry. This is my father, my mother. Advocate for your people.
Yes.
And do it unshamefully. Don't be ashamed or feeling like you're being too pushy or you're a know-it-all. And if you've got an arrogant physician or surgeon that's acting like, how dare you question me, he can go bye-bye, because there's others. So you ask those questions: how many procedures have you done? Right? You can go online and you can look at some of the reviews on that particular physician. Ask him, where did he go to medical school? What was his specialty? These kind of things. These are legitimate, common sense questions you can ask these physicians. How many procedures like this one have you done? I'll give you an example. My father, who had diabetes, I was in Cincinnati. I was a director of training. We were training surgeons. And my father was Jamaican. He was like, I'm not going to let nobody chop my foot off. He was old school. And but his toe was diabetic. So I found out that I thought they were going to do a FemPop, or a bypass, a femoral popliteal type connection, where you're bypassing the blockage. And these are some of the arteries in the anatomy of the leg. Well, my father, the day before the procedure, my brother said, I went into Pop's hospital room, and this is the first time I ever seen this man cry. Because he was looking around, he saw that my brothers or the people that were around him were oblivious to what they would need to do to check this physician, to make sure they weren't going to just all make money off of a procedure. So my brother called and said, Dad cried. And it just shook me out of my mind, because I saw him crying. I jumped up, I went to the VP, and I told him I'm leaving immediately. And if there's any issues of concern, we can address those later. I showed up that morning at the hospital in Newark, and I saw the surgery schedule, because again, I'm used to going in surgery. I know the surgical board. They were going to do an abdominal aortic bypass surgery on him, which had nothing to do with the blockage in his leg.
Wow. So they were going to perform a surgery on his abdominal, his belly button?
The abdominal aorta is the largest vessel in the body. Okay, so if you're going to clamp that off and do a bypass on that, where the issue was in his leg, that's where the bypass should have been. They had no business going inside of his chest and clamping off the aorta. And they were going to do a bypass. And then the other things was the things that I knew that they didn't know I knew. What's the morbidity of a physician, of a man this age who's got fluid in his lungs and a pacemaker surviving a surgery like that? So I flew in. And to cap it off, that particular surgeon that promised my family they were going to be there to do the case, he was on vacation. And there were a bunch of residents and foreigners doing it. So I came in, I saw the operating board, and I said, where's Dr. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, he's on surgery. Give me his cell number. I called him up and I said, I'm appalled that, blah, blah, blah. And I said, the thought that you would do an abdominal aortic bypass on my father, where his issues are in the peripheral in his leg, I said, what's the morbidity? I'm hitting him with this stuff. And he goes, wait a minute, are you a surgeon? I'm like, don't worry about that. So he said, we weren't going to do that procedure. They canceled the procedure.
Wow.
And then they ended up doing the procedure that the one I spoke about, the bypass in the leg.
Well, Joe, one of the interesting things is with that bypass, Joe and Linda, is a lot of times in our people, they don't even consider the bypass. They go straight for the amputation.
Right. This is what's going on. They are not even, see, here's the thing. Your primary care should be the first line. If you want to fix it, your primary care should be doing diagnostic type screenings on you in the primary care's office, right?
Mm-hmm.
The reason they don't do it is because Medicaid, Medicare don't pay for it.
Exactly.
And also diabetic toes and diabetes, sometimes it's not showing. It's there, but those blockages are not symptomatic at sometimes. So by doing the screening, you could see it in advance, right? Another point I was going to make before I lose the thought, when we're talking about medicine and pharmaceuticals, when Obama was the president, he talked about precision medicine. Okay, precision medicine means that instead of me writing a script and giving you a hypertensive medicine or a cholesterol medicine or whatever, when African-American women and men were not even included in the clinical trials,
Mm-hmm.
right? They were going to swab your mouth and they would send it to a pharmacogenetic testing lab. And what
Wow.
they could do would be they could look at and see specifically what type of hypertensive medicine, what type of pain medicine that your body would metabolize, because everybody's not going to metabolize the same medications.
Right.
So you might have a grandmother taking 3 different hypertensive medicines. Well, that one's for the water and this one's for that and this one's for that. When they could have swabbed her mouth and found out exactly what type of hypertensive medicine she would have needed. And she would have been on her way to wellness 10 years ago.
So this just takes me back. I mean, this just takes me aback because, first of all, the doctor's been on vacation and having residencies and so forth. And we need to have those personnel in the hospital. Literally, you have described my father's entire scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Primary surgeons, all of a sudden, the day of the surgery was out in the Philippines, and we never knew that. So he got a substitute.
Exactly.
Beyond that, one of the things that I hope that our audience really hears you on is to become knowledgeable beyond where you think you can, because we have so much information in the public domain that will teach you. If someone wants to hire a consultant, because that's another, maybe families need to hire a consultant, a medical consultant, or someone as knowledgeable such as yourself. Is that a service that's out there and available?
You know what? I do this intuitively. Like I get calls all the time. I got a prostate issue. Oh, my dad's got a colon. He's got colon cancer, or and like for the prostate, what kind of procedure are they going to do? Oh, I can't urinate. I got BPH, benign prostatic hyperplasia, enlarged prostate. And so I do that all the time. I think it's needed. We need medical technologists or people with a broad base of information. Because a lot of people have just a specialty. Like I was a cardiovascular tech or doc, while others could have been in general surgery. I've just been blessed because I've been in every one of those suites. And so I understand. And what it did was it made me aware of the issues pertaining to us or pertaining to poor healthcare, and a lot of it has to do with disparities, I think our people perish because of lack of knowledge. So what are the points that we need to come up with? Number one, as you stated, we need to not be afraid. We need to be advocates for our loved ones. Don't just assume the doc's good and they got experience. You want to ask questions. Beware of the white coat syndrome. Do not be afraid to ask with proper etiquette and diplomacy the right questions. Do your research first. Learn as much about the procedure as you can. Google will break it down and it will kind of explain to you in layman's terms what actually is happening. So you get that. You can even see a video on the procedure. So now when you approach the doctor, you've got a groundswell of knowledge. So you feel a little more confident about what you're asking. Understand he's only human. So you can tell there's like LeBron James and Kobe Bryant, and then there's the other guys. Well, when it comes to the skill set, you can be intelligent enough to pass the medical exam, but you might not have good hands in surgery.
Wow.
You might get anxiety and start, I've been in with guys like that. Child, what do you think? I can't tell you. All I can tell you is what I've seen other surgeons do, third-party reference. I was trained for that, but so make sure you advocate and make sure you take the time that you love your loved ones enough to go and just do your basic research. If you've got a friend or someone that's knowledgeable, maybe they're a physician friend or something, and they can break it down more for you, take the time to give them a call. And then from there, make sure you do the proper research, just like you were employing somebody at your company. like make sure you look at that physician, find out what's going on. He could have had some malpractice issues. He could have had a bunch of things. You might find those things out, but more importantly, how experienced are you in doing this particular procedure? How many have you done?
Yes.
What's been the outcomes? Those are the basic. That's the basic foundation for gathering the proper information to make sure your loved one gets the best outcome. Okay.
And patients have the rights to do that.
Absolutely.
So they know. So if you are feeling that level of intimidation, there are advocates inside the hospital that can support you in that conversation, and then individuals such as yourself.
Absolutely.
Joe, is there a way that folks can get a hold of you in what you're doing?
I think Yvette's going to help me out here because, I need to get more exposure because I probably should have been out doing this a long time ago. I would just do it at the churches. People would say, call Joe Walters. Everybody's calling me. I'm like, what do you call, but this is information that is vital for all of us. We probably need to create a forum where we are continuing to have dialogue like this, and one thing that I thank God for is, as I said, it's not what you say, it's your delivery. I would love to go into any institution anywhere to speak with men or women, and talk about, the Trinity, mind, body, and soul, understanding your health. People are dying way too young for no reason.
Yes.
So I do have a website, josephthespeaker.com and .org, and people can reach me there. But I will start probably trying to find some other vehicles where people can contact me, because there's a lot of information, that has to do with pre and post, where's science going? A lot of people are blind to understand that Johnson & Johnson, Medtronic, all these major companies, their lifeblood is new technology, right? But that new technology can be amazing, but if it's brought out beforehand, like getting a 510K approval and bringing in a technology and piggybacking off of another technology without doing clinical research, will cause you to get a bad hip. And then you'll look on TV, as I'm sure all of you've seen, if you've got some kind of mesh in your groin or in your pelvis, or if you've gotten this hip implant or this knee, this total knee, call blah, blah, blah. Well, they've made $1 billion, but they're willing to pay out $100 million.
Right.
Thank you.
You need to understand all of this because, as I said, the hunt is on and we're the prey. It's a capitalistic society. And we do have some great surgeons out there. We've got some great healthcare clinicians out there. But, we live in a capitalistic society. So you have to understand that you can't just be blind. You got to do your homework.
All right, folks. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Joe, I hope you don't say, instead of saying Joseph, calling you Joe.
Joseph
I feel like
fine.
I know you already. Like I know you closely here. So, Joe, you were phenomenal.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
You were phenomenal. I can't wait for the follow-up. I can't wait for the sequel of this interview. You were just incredible. The feedback on social media has just been exceptional.
Wow.
Right in sync, right on point with you. And so you really resonated in a big way. Thank you so much. But unfortunately, segment number 1 has come to the end. And so we have segment 2 coming up on business, economy, and public policy. And we're going to be celebrating the success of small businesses. And
excellent.
To that. So thank you so much for being part of the program, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And happy anniversary.
Yes.
Happy
anniversary. And
happy anniversary.
Belated birthday, Anthony Weeks.
Yes, happy birthday.
Yeah. Birthday. Yeah, I'm 28, by the way. So just
all right. Look at you.
Yeah, that's what I saw on your Facebook.
Yeah.
I'm forever 28.
That's good, buddy.
Fibs.
Fantastic.
All right, guys. It's been real good.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Joe. Looking back to having you on the program.
Thank you, guys. All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.